Saptarshis they are called. Just like those 7 stars in the sky, they are called Saptarshis. And this is also Saptarshi. We had concept of Saptarshi. That they're all here in this body. Saptarshis are there. These are all how the Vedas developed knowledge, began to manufacture words and concepts to express this idea. The very word Veda itself is just knowledge, not any sacred knowledge or anything, just knowledge. That's the idea. So also many other expressions are there, just correct, precise term and concept. So the word Deva comes. We say now Deva means some God sitting here and there. Actually, the word Deva was used to describe this sensory system, this dead body. What makes for light in this body? The sensory system. Living sensory system makes for light in the body. When they are dead, there is no light at all. Though openings are there, but there is no light there. So the word Deva, Div means light. That's the meaning of the Sanskrit word. Deva, the luminous part of reality you got in the body. So sense organs are called Devas. First, original meaning. Later on, we found these organs are not the source of real light. Light comes from a deeper source. Then we thought it is mind. Then we thought it is buddhi. No. Beyond that is the Atman. That is the center of all light. Light of all lights. That discovery you will find later on here. But the word Deva remain for the sense organs. Later on, in mythology, various divine individualities around the world, they are also Devas. And they function in dealing with the world outside. The tree, the plant, the flowering, all these are the work of Devas, we say. Not mythology. It is some sort of a luminous influence on all these things going on. First dealing with us in the body, later on in the world outside also. Surya is a Deva because center of light, a big center of light. Surya will be centered here. The whole of the pranas are centered in the Surya. That is, Surya in this sense of the solar system Surya and other stars as well. They are all condensations of prana, helping for manifestation of the world here. So we are dealing with Satyam. And Shankara says, the world of Satyam is centered in the world of pranas, all energies. That is symbolically found in the sun. So far the solar system is concerned, other stars as well. All these constitute the Satyam, the world of manifestation. Idam, idam, idam as we call it. Then only we can say what is Satyasya Satyam. First you must know what is Satyam. Then you will know Satyasya Satyam. First therefore realize what is this relativity. Then find out what the absolute beyond the relativity. Seek the absolute after understanding the relative. Shankara says in the commentary here, exactly what we think of today. I am quoting that very sentence here. First, try to understand this relative world. Then a finger will point out something higher. What is the absolute? In fact, scientists tell us today, whatever we try in science is to understand what is the absolute truth. But whatever we get is only relative truth. But the search is for the absolute. This is the language I am quoting. Search is for the absolute. But what we get is relative. This at all levels. So he said, the whole range of this world of truth is called Satyam. And then you ask the question, what is the truth of this truth? Satyasya Satyam. This is a perishable, relativistic world. Is there anything absolute? Normally science will say no, there is nothing absolute. But some scientists are saying, yes, we have to go further. Vedanta did it ages ago. Then we discovered that infinite pure consciousness, one and non-dual, that is the Satyasya Satyam, Vrita Satya Netram, Satyatmakam. These are the words Bhagavata uses to explain or describe this profound truth. So, this is the great idea. You see the symbolic language, and what is modern physics? Full of symbolic language. Mathematics is all symbolic language. Physics sometimes puts it into ordinary physical terms, but when you bring mathematics, it becomes entirely symbolic language. In those days, this was a symbolic language. They expressed it in that language because dealing with the world of the self, world of consciousness. So Deva, such words come quite often. So that's what he said. The next chapter, we will deal with Brahman has two forms. This world of manifestation is Brahman. That also is Brahman. That is Satyasya Satyam. This is Satyam. In this Satyam, there are two levels. One is expressed, the other is unexpressed. One is gross, the other is subtle. These are two. That next chapter will deal with this matter. We shall deal with it next Sunday. We shall continue the text of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, chapter 2, or book 2. We spoke about Brahman as the truth of truth. The infinite self, same thing as Brahman, is described as truth of truth, satyasya satyam. If so, first we should know what is satyam. So the first study in the Upanishad is about this world, the world which appears before us in all its diversity and variety. And this study led to a tremendous generalization. The whole world is a play of energy, prana as they called it, just a play of energy. The world there, outside, body of human being here, both are just a play of energy. The word used was prana. That prana is the truth. This whole appearance of the universe, manifestation of the universe, is nothing but prana, and that is truth. And what is the truth of this truth when you ask? You go to the Atman, of the nature of pure consciousness. This prana is not consciousness, just energy. If it functions through the body, they call it bioenergy. But consciousness doesn't belong to that energy. It belongs to something deeper. And therefore, Upanishads try to understand what is the truth of this truth. That is a wonderful question. So that term came, satyasya satyam. So regarding this, the next chapter deals with this world of truth. It has two forms. You will see here. This is the chapter 3 of book 2. Dve bhava brahmano rupe murtam cha amurtam cha martyam cha amrutam cha sthitam cha yatcha satcha tyatcha. They are all technical terms. The explanation comes later. Brahman has but two forms, gross and subtle, sthula and sukshma, two forms. Mortal, immortal. Similarly, limited, unlimited. Defined, undefined. This is the first statement. Then, tadetat murtam. Let us deal with this murtam. This embodied form of Brahman. The gross is that which is other than air and ether. Ether and air are not tangible, are not what you call visible like any other object. That is the intangible form, the subtle form. Whereas the rest, earth, fire, all these are visible, tangible, etc. They called it as murtam, absolutely visible and formed. Then, what is amurtam? This space is amurtam. Vayu and antariksham, these are the two words used here. They are amurtam. They have no form. And yet they are there. They form part of the universe. They make for the manifestation of this universe. Like that they study. Having studied these two, the Upanishad begins to speak about the truly immortal dimension of this mortal world. There comes the word prana there. The whole universe is only a temporary manifestation at molecular levels of a fund of energy, an ocean of energy. He puts it there. So this got to the body also the same. In this human body, there are centers where you will find energy functioning. All of our sensory system are centers of that energy. As in the world outside, we have the solar system or the stellar system. In the body, we have all these systems. This is one part of it, there is one part. They are parallel. The microscopic and macroscopic, both are parallel to each other. There also you have, here also we have. In fact, the eye is related to the sun according to our theory. The right eye particularly is specially mentioned in our literature. Dakshine akshan purusho. There is a being represented by the right eye, behind the right eye. Somehow the right eye has been found to be so much important. The sun and the right eye, they go together. The same principle of energy is there as it is here. Dakshine akshan purusho vidyate. That's a language they will use in Shankara's commentary. There is a beautiful observation that according to our science obtaining at that time in embryology, the first organ to develop in the embryo is the eye. So I asked one doctor to find out, and I will leave to you whether it is correct or not according to modern theory. The body develops in the embryo. There, the eye is the first to develop among the other organs. That is the language he has used here. That is the importance of the eye. And we can see the human personality is manifested through the eye. The eye is the index of the soul. Shakespeare said, the face is the index of the soul. And in the face, the eye is the index of the soul. That's language. So, importance given to this eye in the human system and cosmic system. The sun is the eye of the whole world. It is that sees everything. That eye sends forth its own rays, penetrating every nook and corner. Nothing can escape the sight of the sun in the solar system. This kind of comparison given in this particular text, amurtam, without any particular form. Having said this, now comes what is the truth of truth. We said vital force is truth, and this is the truth of the truth. We said like that. Now, having said this, the Upanishad begins to say, this prana and the mind that functions through this system, that mind is full of samskaras, plenty of impressions, all types of impressions. They give the example, a cloth dyed in yellow, turmeric, it has got full of color, or the wool of a sheep. So the example is given, or the lightning, the fire in the lightning, the light in the lightning. This mental impressions, millions of them are there in all of us. They are just like this. But this is not the truth. This is only the surface aspect of reality, behind which is the self. That search is a search for the truly immortal. Nature, prana, is immortal. Prana doesn't die. But prana is not conscious. It has no intelligence. It has not the principle of awareness in it. But behind it, with that principle of awareness, we go to it by investigating the nature of this awareness. In the neurology, when you study, neural impulses come. That impulse is able to see, to understand, to experience. Where from that power comes? Neurology has neural energy. That energy is similar to electricity outside. But electricity doesn't see. Electricity functioning in the body is the power to see, power to experience. It comes from a deeper source. That deeper source is the search, the self, the Atman. All our search in the Upanishad is for that source. What is the source of intelligence? What is the source of consciousness? What is the truly immortal? This is the quest. In this quest, this study of the external world was undertaken not only through physics, but also through biology. Physics, chemistry on one side, and biology, life systems on the other. Then comes psychology, thought, impressions, sukshma sharira, the subtle body, containing all these impressions that constitute the subtle body. In none of this you will find the self itself, but the impressions of the self, you will get the impact of the self, you get in all of them. Self is pure consciousness, one and non-dual. That is the first proposition, and we are trying to understand whether it is true by studying the world of manifestation, calling it truth. Then we finally come across that Atman of the nature of pure consciousness, which energizes all these conscious entities here or in the cosmos outside. That we call it Satyasya Satyam, truth of all truth. That is the language that is used here. And so, in this section, the commentary of Shankaracharya makes it clear, and I don't want to go deeper into this because the main subject is coming. Only modern science can teach us better regarding the world of manifestation. But 4,000 years ago, when this kind of scientific inquiry was extremely elementary, we got some wonderful idea of the truth of the world in which we live. And we studied it, and we found it is insufficient. It doesn't give us knowledge of the ultimate truth. There is no consciousness. There is no intelligence there. We want to know where it is. In this way, the world of relativity was discarded in search for word the absolute, the infinite, the non-dual, the one behind the many. That is the main purpose of the Upanishad, and in this connection, we are going to enter into a wonderful chapter, the next chapter, the dialogue between Yajnavalkya and Maitreyi, where this subject is beautifully expounded, and one great value is expounded there, namely renunciation. The great emphasis on Tyaga, renunciation, comes at this section of the Upanishad, without which we can never go from truth to the truth of truth. Unless we get detached the world of truth, you cannot understand the world of the truth of truth. That emphasis on renunciation is the supreme emphasis in this section of the Upanishad, Yajnavalkya Maitreyi dialogue. It's a famous in this section, and in the fourth book also, same thing comes once again. So that we shall study this wonderful subject. But before we study Yajnavalkya Maitreyi dialogue, where the stress is on renunciation. If you want to understand the truth of truth, you must be detached from the world of truth. Otherwise, you will never understand the truth of truth. This is lying on it. Therefore, unless you lift it, you can't see that thing. Ramakrishna one day held his hand over the other. Now, unless I lift this hand, how can you get this hand? This is over this. So things are like this in experience. We should therefore lift the truth and then get what the truth of truth. That lifting is what we call renunciation. If the mind is completely occupied with the world of truth, it will never understand the truth of truth. We shall have to detach ourselves from this, then understand it better and better. Therefore, in that connection, I wanted to share with you, as I often done all these Sundays, that the whole of modern scientific thought, starting with the study of the world of truth, the world of manifestation, is slowly pointing a finger to that truth of truth. In physics, human consciousness has become fundamental today. Till now it was absolutely ignored. We only studied the object of consciousness, the world outside, the object. Now in 20th century, the subject, the seer, is becoming important. I wish to quote a passage from a scientist who writes on this subject, physics point of view, followed by another wonderful contribution from biology, pointing the same finger in that direction, the truth of truth, truth and truth of truth. Biology, I'll be quoting a passage here, dealing with the subject of renunciation. What's the meaning of renunciation? How does biology deal with the subject? It's something amazing that as we go deeper into physical science, these truths come out again and again, because the Upanishads themselves, the product of a search for truth. I want to know the truth of things. Therefore, that search led them deeper, 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 from gross to subtle, subtle to the most subtle, that is the Atman, infinite subtlety you find there. Subtlety, immensity, invertness reach their consummation in the Atman, says Shankara in the Kathopanishad commentary. It's a famous passage. What is modern science? Search for the subtle behind the gross. And you get one subtle, you go still further. Say, for example, we had knowledge of molecules. From Democritus onwards, we called them atoms at that time. But actually, nobody has seen the atom. But we call it atom. That atom of Democritus is called molecule of modern science. That molecule we broke further, then found atom there. Broke it still further, more subtle, and found these particles that are there. And we are still searching deeper and deeper. Therefore, knowledge grows from gross to subtle, subtle to still more subtle. That is exactly what is happening in physical science today, and from diversity to unity through various levels of generalization. Say, for example, a cow is an object, individual object. Then we call it the class called cow. In that class, this cow is an item, that is all. A generalized concept, and thus universalized concept. In this way we go on. We go like this, we come to the Atman finally, pure intelligence. That is the final, that is the last. Sa kashta, sa paragatihi, Upanishad said. Exactly the same thinking is taking place in physical science today. So I wish to quote from one physicist and the other from biologist, and both are authorities on the subject. Biology, I quote Sir Julian Huxley. He died a few years ago, and a tremendous authority on not only biology but also the philosophical significance of biology. What does biology say regarding the philosophy of reality? That he is a wonderful master, and all the biologists respected him, especially in the Chicago Congress, 1959, when they were celebrating Darwin centenary, a week-long seminar, which has been published in 3 volumes, Evolution After Darwin. And the editor, Saul Tax, says this conference was dominated by that great scientist, Sir Julian Huxley. Everybody was waiting to hear him. And one of his great lectures in that Congress was the evolutionary vision. What a wonderful word it is, the evolutionary vision. How does the world look in the light of evolution? A total look. Individual items you can always study, how the insects evolved, etc., etc. Take evolution as a whole, and as a tremendous objective look at it, that is the subject, the evolutionary vision. Later on, he published another great book that is called Evolution, a Modern Synthesis. In his letter to me, he especially referred to this book, Evolution, a Modern Synthesis. I have given my latest views in that particular book, he said. So I purchased the book and read it also. I will share with you a few sentences from that book. And both these will be preparing our mind to appreciate the tremendous significance of the teachings of the Upanishad based upon truth only, truth about life, truth about the world. That is how we appreciate the great depth of thought in the Upanishads, dealing with the human situation from the biological point of view. The first is a wonderful book in The New Story of Science. He speaks of 2 stories of science, old story, new story. Up to 1900, it is old story, and Newtonian physics we call it. But towards the end of the last century, in the beginning of this century, new facts became available, especially the phenomenon of radioactivity, this disintegration of atom going on. It is something automatic disintegration. We never knew this. That means this atom is composed of something smaller. So particle comes in. So this was the beginning of a scientific revolution. From 1900, quickly it started. Then quantum, all these things, relativity theory came, and principle of uncertainty came. A complete break with the old story. This is a new story. Is dealing with that subject, how the new cosmology is reshaping our view of mind, art, God, and ourselves. That is called the new science. Old science had no place for any of this. Only objects. Only objects we study. But the new science, we study object and the subject. They become very important here. That is how we enter into the Vedantic understanding through modern scientific thought. So he begins here in this particular section. From being the author, name is given here, excellent, Robert Ogros, one gentleman, and George Stancy. 2 people are mentioned here. It's a preface by Sir John Eccles, a famous scientist, Sir John Eccles, Englishman. From being an insignificant creature on a modest planet circling around an ordinary star, that is the sun, in an immense galaxy of 100,000 million other stars, man has now become exalted as a participator in a great cosmic drama. There being even the concept of the anthropic principle, that is the whole cosmic happening from the Big Bang onwards, was designed in order that conscious observers could exist at some place and time in the expanding universe. This is the wonderful change that has come. Man was nobody in the beginning, just a speck of dust. Now he is the observer of the whole universe. All the evolutionary processes he is observing. What is the nature of that? A profound mystery appears in the human being. It is with this understanding you can appreciate the beginning of the 2nd chapter, where studying the Atman. Let us study the self in man. Let us study various experiences, waking, dream, sleep, etc. There we can study all the dimensions of what you call the self as appears in experience. That is why it is very important. In the first book of Brihadaranyaka, it is only a proposition. Atme Tevo Pasita, meditate upon the reality as the Atman, and it is one with Brahman. All that he has said there as a mere proposition. Second book takes up the subject and takes us more deeper and deeper into this project. So here, this is just one of many sentences. There are many sentences like this. I just took one to show how the trend is going. Trend is the word today. And trend with some clarity also coming. You can't explain nuclear phenomena, quantum phenomena without reference to the consciousness of the observer, is one sentence in a scientific book. So what is neglected becomes central again. What a beautiful idea. The stone that the builders rejected became the coping stone of the new edifice, language of Jesus in the Bible. The stone that the builders rejected became the coping stone of the new edifice. That is exactly what is happening with respect to consciousness in this world of physical science today. So this is physics, but when you come to biology, you come closer, because consciousness is a datum in biology. After millions of years of evolution, cosmic evolution, suddenly you found a living cell appearing on the horizon of evolution. A living cell. A tremendous evolution it was. That it is conscious. It can understand the world around it. It can behave. It can go forward. It can protect itself. That's only a very elementary, just a little, but a tremendous new principle appeared on the horizon of evolution. From that we could see, as Indian philosophy speaks, that principle is there throughout nature, throughout the cosmos, but not manifesting. That's all. It's just hidden, not manifesting. That's India's way of putting it. Evolution involves involution. What is there only can evolve. What is not there cannot come. Out of something, something can come. Out of nothing, nothing will come. So there must have been consciousness in the primordial matter, so that it could manifest at some stage of evolution, and the later progress of evolution confirms the principle something more, that little principle called consciousness appearing the living cell becomes more and more variegated, more and more powerful as evolution proceeds in the evolutionary ladder. A single cell organism, then multi-celled organism, then different organisms. So this kind of expansion takes place in evolution from this level up to the human level. What you see there is improvement of structure, manifestation of consciousness. Consciousness is there, but the structure is not fit to manifest it. So as the structure evolves, consciousness shines more and more and more. What was shining as a very small datum in the living cell shines as a wonderful way in animals, mammals, and finally in the human being. There is something as a tremendous development here. And so they ask this question, is there progress in evolution? It's a wonderful subject. 19th century completely banished the idea of progress. There is no progress at all. There is change, but no progress. Progress has a value orientation. Progress in some direction. But 19th century materialism never accepted the concept of progress because they never accepted the concept of value. Everything is changes, that is all. Improvement of adaptation, all that is there. But progress, I cannot accept at all. In this book, Huxley has introduced 2 chapters towards the end. One is called evolutionary trend. The other is called evolutionary progress. Progress, which is an unscientific term. You can't speak of progress in physics and chemistry. And therefore, you can't speak of progress in biology or its various constituents like botany and zoology. There's no progress. There are changes, that is all. So many scientists used to protest against it. There are few people who speak about it before 1900 AD. Now, in the post-1900 period, more and more scientists are speaking about progress and protesting against those who protest against progress. And here you will see for the first time Huxley giving voice to these new ideas by saying, without values, you can't understand evolution at the human stage. At the pre-human stage, you can avoid mentioning value. But at the human stage, without value, evolution cannot be understood at all. So those are the passages which are very important for us in the context of what we are going to study in the next chapter of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad regarding knowledge of Brahman, knowledge of the truth of truth, which needs the spirit of dispassion, spirit of renunciation, detachment from the world of truth to understand the truth of truth. That is the language here, and you will find a similar language coming here also. Here is the Huxley's statement in this connection. Progress and evolution. Yeah. Human values are doubtless essential criteria for the steps of any future progress, but only biological values can have been operative before man appeared. Before man, biological value. But after the advent of man, spiritual value, moral value, human value also begin to appear. You can't do without them. That's the language used there. There is no need to multiply examples, saying there the distinguishing characteristics of dominant evolutionary groups all fall into one or other of two types. One, those making for greater control over the environment. Any organism that develops greater control over the environment will become dominant. It will be forward going in evolution. That's number one. The other is, and those making for greater independence of changes in the environment. If climate changes, the organism can still stand. Any organism that develops this capacity will go further and further and become dominant. So two are the characteristics. One is independence of the environment. The other is independence of changes in the environment, and also greater control over the environment. Any organism does it, then it becomes dominant. We have seen it from the lowest to highest. Some became specialized, like the insects. They did not progress further. They stagnated. For millions and millions of years, there has been no further movement as far as insects and some other species are concerned, because they specialized. Specialization is death. Specialization means destruction of all creativity. In biology telling us today, even in education also, too much specialization is bad. We are seeing it today. I went to a doctor in Boston for my dental service. So he told me, I don't deal with the teeth, I only deal with the gum. That's all he said. I was surprised to hear. Yeah. So one by one we are specializing, and what they say in English, knowing more and more about less and less. That's called specialization. Any animal that specialized became stagnant, never progressed. So progress and specialization are not the same. Wherever there is specialization, there is no progress. You must be able to deal with all aspects. So he is going to stress that point now. He says, these advance in these respects of greater control of the environment and also greater independence of the environment. These two may provisionally be taken as the criterion of biological progress. Wherever these two obtain, we can say there is biological progress. Then, after saying this, he speaks later on in this section here. The future program of progressive evolution is the future of man. The future of man, if it is to be progress and not merely a standstill or a degeneration, what we call samsari. The word samsari has got a scientific meaning. We have put so many other meanings in it and deprived ourselves of our own importance, etc. That is misfortune. Actually, samsara means stagnation at a particular level, the sensory level. That's called stagnation. Not living in the world. Living in the world is not samsara. But stagnation at a particular level is called samsara. That's the language he is using here in the biological language. There. The future of man, if it is to be progress and not merely a standstill or a degeneration, must be guided by a deliberate purpose. Take, for example, insects. They became very specialized, and the result is stagnated. We specialize in the sensory level and never go further. We stagnate. We have no future at all. The human being does it, there is no future. Even civilizations we see dying away because of that stagnation. And so, the biology is thinking in these terms now, terms which we thought ages ago, same language, but more clear in today's way of expression. This must be guided, this human evolution must be guided by a deliberate purpose. And one language is used here. Man, as we have stressed, is in many respects unique among animals. His purpose must take account of his unique features as well as those he shares with other life. There is the animal within us. There is something else also within us. It's not all animal. Something higher also is there. Man is a combination of animality and divinity. A sentence 50 years ago I heard in a lecture on Vedanta. Man is a combination of animality and divinity. That animal portion must go. Now, so many years ago, a teacher spoke like this in India. Similar sentence you are getting here in this very book. Just now I will be sharing with you. he says. But the formulation of an agreed purpose of human evolution is difficult. Everybody has his own way. That actually doesn't know what Indian sociology has done on this subject. So I will just correct it from this point of view. Their knowledges, I can understand. The range of thought that India has taken on the question is vast. And little only they knew. In fact, actually he knew very little of India. When he was given my book, Message to the Upanishads, by an Englishman. Sir, here is a book by a Swami from India. I want to present it to you. No, I don't need it. I don't want it. What can India do? He's thinking, he's an Englishman. What is India? Nothing. A slave country. That is a feeling. But he stressed and stressed again and again, that Englishman. Then actually his wife told him, the gentleman is pressing you. Why don't you take it? At that time, he was playing with the book with the hand like this. Suddenly, he opened a particular page, 57 also, one page there. There he found, I have criticized him, that particular point there, that Huxley doesn't know the deeper dimensions of Indian thought. He knows all the weaknesses of India from newspapers and articles, other things he doesn't know. So he writes in his book, I'm putting all this in the Upanishad book, he writes in his book, I went to India on a visit recently and I found an announcement in the paper that a mother has sacrificed her child to please God. That's all India he knows, nothing more. That Huxley will change. When understand the Upanishads, the Gita and other profound books, that opinion will change. That passage he just took and found his criticism there. Then he kept the book. All right, I will read it. Then he read it. Then he wrote to me. I have praised him highly in the book. Only for this I said, you don't know the depth of Indian thought. You only know the evil side of it, the petty side of it, etc. Our own people also the same thing. They know only the petty side of Indian life. Untouchability, casteism, all we know. Profound thoughts we do not know. So he read, criticized, praised, wrote me a letter. I replied to him. All that you get as the appendix in my book, Message to the Upanishad. So here, there I have said, there are so many things you do not know. The profound dimension. Answered his questions one by one. And he said, we don't need any further discussion. I accept what you say. Like that he wrote a last letter. That's also published there. So, common purpose of human evolution. We discussed it in India. Our great thinkers, not ordinary, profound thinkers, and they formulated a wonderful theory. You call it the Purusharthas, theory of the Purusharthas. How much of thought has gone behind, you will see in that particular formulation. He spoke of this formulation of a great purpose for man as a whole. Will not be easy. There have been attempts. Various ideas and ideals have been given, but they have not been successful. Until such major conflicts are resolved, humanity can have no single major purpose, and progress can but be fitful and slow. Progress is a major factor of past evolution, but it is limited to a few selected stocks of species. By now, it has become the trustee, man has become the trustee of evolution. He is the trustee of further evolution. He must work and plan if he is to achieve further progress for himself and for life as a whole. At this stage, suppose he had studied this fourfold aim of human life, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, all urges of human beings have been included in these four. A tremendous classification. They are called the Purusharthas, the exact word. What you call the word that is used here by formulation agrees purpose. The word purpose is exactly artha. What is the purpose of human life? What is Purushartha? Same language. So, we found first, sensory satisfaction. We call it kama. Beautiful. Nobody will deny it. There is no asceticism in our thinking. We speak of the whole gamut of human values. First, kama. Even a little baby wants pleasure, the warmth of the mother's body. Kama begins that state up to the high levels of kama. You'll find it, kama. But kama involves also a second subsidiary value called artha, money. You want money to satisfy kama. So, dharma, artha, wealth. Wealth is included. Noble, great. Nobody condemns it in Indian sociology. So, these two come. But when these two come, a third value comes in. All the sensory values are included in kama and artha. But to regulate all this at the human level, you need a third value, ethical value, moral value. That's called dharma. Word value in English means actually dharma, a philosophy of values. Without dharma, you can't have satisfaction, either kama or artha. The strong man will take everything, all the rest will go to the wall. Unless dharma is there, orderly society, law, regulation, and the moral impulse to accept law and regulation. Without the moral impulse, no regulation can be accepted. You may pass a law. I am not interested to take it, not to accept it. I will break it without being caught by the police. Therefore, moral impulse is needed to respect law, regulation, and follow it for the good of all. Is good of all. So dharma is essential. Without dharma, human society will be animal farm. The language of the Sanskrit writing. Dharmena hina pashupis samanaha. Take away dharma from human society, it will be just like an animal farm. Nothing else is there. So we found these three values, purusharthas, dharma, artha, kama. Though kama comes first, then comes artha, then comes dharma. But because dharma is primary, to regulate dharma, kama and artha, it is always put up first in all our formulas. Dharma, artha, kama, we say. Not kama, artha, dharma, we don't say. But dharma is primary for any kind of regulation. But kama is primary, so far as experience is concerned, we recognize both. So the preeminence of dharma is expounded there. These three, they are called trivarga, universal. Any Russian, American, Japanese, anybody, they must all have these three. Now suppose he had known this, he would have developed that idea here, that he didn't know it at all. Dharma, artha, kama. Then comes a fourth value, something supreme. Up to this, it is social level. Man in association with other human beings in a society. These are the three. But man as himself, as an individual, what is his own intrinsic value? Not value in a crowd. Society is a crowd. But have I got intrinsic value for myself? That is a wonderful concept. You have, says Vedanta. You have not, says Greece and modern Western thought. Only in the crowd you have a value. Individually you have no value. But today they are realizing, as an individual also, man has a tremendous value, a focus of great value. Human individuality is highly respected today in Western culture. That individuality, they know only in the physical sense and the ego sense, nothing higher. It is there you have the fourth value. India calls moksha. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Are you free? Are you free? That question. You are not merely part of a crowd. You have an intrinsic value in yourself. In social life, you need other society members. If you want kama, if you want artha, you want a society in which other people are there. They have also to work, you have also to work. Lot of integration between man and man needed in society. Perfectly acceptable. But when it comes to your own individuality, what is my intrinsic value? Not value as part of society. Then you come to the fourth value called moksha. There you are perfectly alone. Here you are in a crowd. When you are in dharma, artha, kama, you are in a crowd. When you are in moksha level, perfectly alone. That's why men like the famous Neoplatonic thinkers in the 2nd century AD spoke of it as the march of the alone to the alone. That is a wonderful experience. Be alone, be alone. What a wonderful idea it is. Professor Radhakrishnan, a beautiful sentence he uttered to deal with the last stage of human life called moksha. He says, in the last stages of man's life, man travels in single file, not in double file. When you go to Mount Everest, you take 1,000 people with you as your party. Then put a camp below. Then go further up 1,000, 2,000 feet. The party becomes less. Further up, still less. Ultimately, when you go to the last stage, one by one, the last stages of life's journey, we travel in single file, not in double file. That is expressed in the technique of spiritual life called meditation. When you sit for meditation, you are in a crowd. But as soon as you begin meditation, you are gone. You have dived into some depth. You can't be seen at all. That's called aloneness. That is the way to moksha. And that cannot come unless renunciation comes to sustain you. Great strength is needed to be able to rise to that great height. Therefore, renunciation becomes a tremendous virtue and value in that higher level. It is also a great value at the social level of dharma, but not to that extent. But without renunciation, no dharma can be practiced. So Vivekananda said, renunciation and service are the twin ideals of India. You must renounce your own little pleasure to be able to serve the interests of other people. Without the tyaga, no dharma can ever function. And so, at this level, in a crowd, we have that